Some of you might hear the story of Jesus turning water into wine and think, cool, Jesus, you're my kind of guy. You like to party. Others, if you're like me, you're kind of like, that's it? That's all? Seems a little mundane compared to other stuff I know that you can do, like raising the dead or exorcising demons. But when we look a little closer at this moment, at this wedding in Cana, it reveals something profound about who Jesus is and what he's come to do. When Kira and I got married, there was a moment, and only a moment, during the reception when our dance party teetered on dullness. The lights were too bright and the volume not quite right for people to dance. People lined the floor awkwardly, intending to dance, but hardly moving their stiff shoulders. You've all been to this kind of a dance party, or you've committed it. But this all changed when a couple of bold engineers, AKA Kira's brother Timon and one of his henchmen, got to work. At the perfect moment to the perfect song, they turned down the lights, everyone cheered, people were free to move, and there was much pronounced wiggling in small groupings, and we were saved from shame. Jesus' miracle at Cana is much like this, revealing who God is and what he intends to do to step into our moment of failure, wine running out, and turning it into an occasion of abundance and joy, better wine. This apparently mundane story of Jesus turning water into wine takes place soon after John the Baptist bears witness to Jesus about the superior baptism he had come to bring and the story of the calling of the first disciples. And right after this miracle, Jesus heads to Jerusalem for Passover, which is where we hear the story of Jesus' cleansing of the temple, at least in the Gospel of John. The 6 stone water jars mentioned in our story for today already remind us of the temple, but all of these images before and after Jesus' new baptism, Passover, Jesus' cleansing of the temple, show us what is in view. The whole technology of holiness. Temple, sacrifice, laws, and remembrances, the whole divine technology of holiness. Looking closer at the passage itself, we see also this theme of time too. Right there from the beginning, also seemingly a little mundane detail, at the very beginning of our reading, we get a little hint of the resurrection and that little phrase, it all happened on the 3rd day. And it's there again when Jesus refuses to respond to the concerns of his mother, informing her that his hour had not yet come. Of course, when we hear it, we might think that Jesus is just being kind of impetuous or childish, not wanting to do what his mom has asked him to do. But the phrase, my hour, points to just how Jesus' ministry involves this steady beat toward Jerusalem, building up to his final hour, his crucifixion. But Jesus' resistance to obey his mother also points to something else. Jesus denies his mother's request, just like he deliberately delays going to Bethany after hearing of Lazarus' illness, stating that the sickness, like the miracle of water turned wine, is the occasion for the revelation, as we read, of the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it. Jesus seems to linger or refuse the calls of others to show us that all that happens occurs according to his singular obedience to the will of the Father. He responds to no one or nothing else. He will not respond to the proddings of any others. Even the violence that falls upon him occurs according to his divine will. So the cross is no accident at all. Even if designed by human injustice, the cross a death still, of the Spirit's own mission and revealing. Jesus does, of course, get around to responding to the need for more wine and the need to cover the shame of the wedding host whose party has had this hitch. After the servants fill the giant jars, they take some of the wine again, following Jesus' instruction, and give some of it to essentially the event planner, by which time the water had become choice wine, causing the event planner to praise the generosity of the host, which it turns out is Jesus himself. And so we see how Jesus has come to bring the promised renewal of the temple, not so much by putting it away, as much as divinely preserving it. And the great high priest becomes sufficient sacrifice, Jesus himself. The Spirit baptism Jesus brings is in the means by which we are all enjoined to him, his given body, and are, in Paul's words, transferred from darkness to light, water turned into choice wine. I don't know about you, but I'm drawn to these servants who obediently retrieve water and serve it, as Jesus tells them to do. The servants have no reason to listen to Jesus, right, or expect him to do anything. As far as they know, he's just another guest at the wedding. So they really have no reason, it seems, to obey his commands. Yet through their obedience, they become participants in the miracle, disciples, bearing witness to the glory of God, and in turn, it seems, are filled themselves. These servants seem to be images then of discipleship, those who are not bystanders, but the willing, who become participants in the delivery of God's good gifts. And so for that reason, they get to see his glory in the world. Their faith, though too the gift of God, the wine freely given just as Jesus' body is. And even if others don't have the ears to hear, the eyes to see God's glory, they get to see it up close. And so they get to be part of stewarding the gifts of the Father, bringing the party, as it were. In the story, of course, the faith of the disciples must grow and prove itself under trial. Still, at this moment anyway, their faith exists from the moment of that hour, as we read. And as Jesus' own hour of crucifixion approaches, we know that the disciples' faith will prove insufficient as they will abandon Jesus, just as we are all tempted to. But that's why this story is so moving and powerful and encouraging for us. Jesus leads us to his table, bringing abundance where all we brought was lack. He has showed up amidst our failures and shame, and then he invites us to participate in what he is doing and what he is sharing with us. We aren't doing anything to make any of this happen, going to the store to buy more wine, metaphorically speaking. Instead, God freely blesses us where we cannot help ourselves, bringing about fullness, life, and joy from nothing. And this is where at least I am caught on the whole mundanity of this incredible revelation. God in the flesh, the King of kings and Lord of lords, present, yes, at a wedding, but for an unknown and unnamed people. But as hearers of this word this morning, they are unknown, we see, because we are them. Christ is the bridegroom and we the bride of his own mercy. And we get to be, if we follow him, the servants who not only see his glory, but get to participate in its sharing in the world. Still, we have to press. Jesus comes according to his own will and self-definition, not according to our own preferences, the old wine. He leads us beyond the wine that has given out, all those ways we have sought salvation in Jesus' imitators and substitutes, things that don't ultimately fulfill or last. But Jesus, he has come to bring something far better than these, our sit-ins for salvation. himself. He has come offering his very self. But to see this glory, you cannot stand at a safe or a fashionable distance. There are no revelations from afar. We have to put away these things, fashion, fear, and even safety, and go wherever he calls. And if you're like me, you have to, because you find yourself here because there's just nowhere else left to go. But here is the better wine offered, Jesus, freely and abundantly given. So let us draw close to him, and in seeking him, we might not only see his glory, but see it reflected in us, his life shining on us and out before the world. Discipleship following Jesus, we see, just is the form epiphany, revelation takes. You have to come and see it up close so that you can see where Jesus leads to his table and right into his sending and service. Amen.